reportedly likely to remove Erik ten Hag as the manager this summer. Will we see a swap deal between João Félix and Mason Greenwood? And Jean-Clair Todibo breaks his silence on a potential move to Manchester United. These are just some of the stories we will be discussing on this morning's live show. But before we get into that, please do me a small favour, smash a like on today's video. Let's try and see 200 likes on today's show. And if this is your first time watching, please subscribe to the channel as well. I will be live throughout the whole of the transfer window. There'll be a show for you in the morning, a show for you in the evening. And if anything breaks during the day, I do go live as well. So if you're interested in all of the latest Manchester United transfer news and talk, make sure you subscribe to Daily Red Devil. You're all more than welcome. Right, so let's start the show off by talking about Mason Greenwood then. So this story came out from a couple of different newspapers here in the UK late last night. And they're running with the headline that Manchester United are now considering a swap deal involving Mason Greenwood and João Félix. So we know that Atletico Madrid really want to sign Mason Greenwood. That's been widely reported. We know that obviously he went to Getafe and had a really strong season. He won their Player of the Year, I think it was. And, you know, he was attracting interest from all over Europe. Dortmund are interested. Apparently some teams in the Premier League are interested. Now, the question I've got for you, and it's a very simple one, and I want you to get in the comment section and let me know. Would you do a swap deal, Mason Greenwood for João Félix? So I want you to write either swap deal yes or swap deal no. Put that in the comment section. Me personally, I think this would be a good deal. I do. I think João Félix would be a good addition to our squad. I think Bruno Fernandes could unlock the player that we know João Félix is. They're both about the same age. I think João Félix is 24 and Greenwood's 23. Obviously, it hasn't really worked for João Félix at Atletico Madrid. They paid, what was it, like 127 million euros, Atletico Madrid did. And that was 5 seasons ago. I would say his value now is probably about 30 million euros, to be honest. Like, he hasn't gone up in value at all. If anything, he's gone down. Obviously, he went to Chelsea, had an okay time there, not amazing. Went back to Atletico Madrid, and then Atletico Madrid ended up loaning him to Barcelona. So it's not really worked out for João Félix and Atletico Madrid. He has had an okay season, though. He's got 7 goals and 3 assists in La Liga, so he's averaging a goal or an assist every 3 games. And he got 3 goals and 1 assist in the Champions League. So he's had an okay season. I mean, it's not incredible, but I think it's quite decent. I would like to see João Félix at Man United. I think he's a quality player. I think with the right players around him, I think he could be a really important player for Manchester United. And the thing I like about João Félix is he's versatile. He can play on the left wing, but he can also play as a striker or a centre forward. So I think it gives Manchester United lots of options. And I think going forward, we need to be bringing in versatile players who can play and operate across the whole of that front line. A bit like what Mason Greenwood was like. You know, he could play as a right winger, but he could also play as a striker or as a left winger. We need people like that who can operate across the whole of that front line. And I think that João Félix is that type of player. I think he would really improve our team. And I think, you know, if you could do a swap deal for Mason Greenwood, I think it makes a lot of sense. Now, is Mason Greenwood a better player than João Félix? That's a conversation for another day. I think Mason Greenwood on his day is very good, whereas João Félix, I think, has struggled over the last 2 or 3 years. But I still think if you actually look at it from a balanced perspective, I think they're both probably near enough of a similar quality. Mason Greenwood may be slightly better, but obviously given all the circumstances with Mason Greenwood probably not going to be able to come back to Manchester United for whatever reason, then yeah, I think it would be an interesting deal to do. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Either say swap deal yes or swap deal no. And I will run a poll as well. So for anybody watching the video live, obviously you can get involved in the poll. Let me just set that up for you quickly. Would you swap Greenwood or Félix? Okay, the poll is set up. So anybody watching the video live, you can get involved in the poll. If you're watching the video back on repeat, get in the comment section. Either say swap deal yes if you want the swap deal to happen, or say swap deal no if you don't want it to happen. I'm saying yes. I think it would be good if we could get it done. Right, let's talk about Jean-Clair Todibo though, because he's done an interview, I think it was yesterday, talking about his future, talking about the season he's had and stuff. And there were some really interesting quotes that Jean-Clair Todibo came out with. He was directly asked about talks with Manchester United, and he says, honestly, I don't want to talk about my future because of my respect for the fans here and the club, but we have had little discussions for sure. So Manchester United are clearly pursuing the signing of Jean-Clair Todibo. Obviously, having the same owners makes it quite easy. And it looks like he probably will be our first signing of the summer, I think. There is other interest in him, as we all know. I think Tottenham are still interested. I think Chelsea might be interested. So it's not going to be the easiest deal to get done, but you would hope that because Ineos own us and own Nice, that we should be able to get this one over the line. You know, if they go and sell him to Tottenham when we want him as well, like that's going to be a massive red flag, isn't it? So I'll keep you updated on that one. But I think Jean-Clair Todibo probably will be our first signing of the summer. I'm not sure if he's in the French national team. I don't know if anybody knows. Let's have a look. Because obviously if he's in the French national team, then that might mean that we have to wait until after the Euros, maybe. Let's have a quick look. I don't know if they've announced the French team already. I assume they probably have. I can't see it anywhere. If anybody knows whether Jean-Clair Todibo was called up by the French national team, then let me know. Let's have a look. French national team. Euro squad. Let's have a look. Here we go. The squad for the Euros. Sorry about this. I just want to check before I move on. Okay, so he wasn't called up for the Euros, which is interesting. So I think this deal should be able to get done pretty quickly then, because he's not going to be going to the Euros on June the 14th. So he'll be available. He'll be ready to sign for the club. And I think that makes him even more of an appealing prospect because, you know, if you've got to wait until after the Euros, which could be mid-July, that's like 6-7 weeks away. Pre-season starts, I think, 2 weeks after the Euros. So we really need to get as many players on that flight to America, which I think is at the end of July. And Jean-Clair Todibo, in my opinion, would be the perfect player to add to that. But let me know what you guys think. Would you like to see Jean-Clair Todibo at Manchester United or not? For me, yes, I think it would be really, really good. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Right, moving on to the manager situation. So this story's coming out from a journalist on Twitter who does usually get very good information. A lot of the time, he seems to get information from the club. The account's called United Muppeteers. And he is reporting this morning that the situation is the same as last week for Erik ten Hag. Erik ten Hag is very likely to leave Manchester United. He says there is no information yet to suggest otherwise. So the narrative at the moment coming from quite a few different people is that they're still expecting to let him go, which I honestly think is a disgrace. But are we really surprised? We've been told for months and months and months that Ineos want their own person. They want their own puppet. They want their own yes man. And I don't think Erik ten Hag is that. I think Erik ten Hag has demands. He has requirements. He wants involvement in transfers. And I don't think Ineos want to give that to a manager. They don't want a manager. They want a head coach. They want someone who exclusively just works on the training pitch and they don't have any involvement in any of the other stuff, which, being completely fair, is what most modern day football clubs are like. You know, Pep Guardiola, he doesn't sign the players. Jurgen Klopp didn't sign the players at Liverpool. So it is unusual for a manager, Erik ten Hag in this case, to actually have involvement in the transfers. And if you look at it from the other perspective, you can see why other clubs don't do it, because Erik ten Hag's signings have been questionable. His talent ID is questionable. He's pretty much only signed people from Ajax, the Eredivisie, or players who've been on loan in the Eredivisie. Like, think about it. Amrabat played in the Eredivisie. Mason Mount was on loan in the Eredivisie. Anthony was at Ajax. Martinez was at Ajax. Amrabat played in the Eredivisie. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, obviously, Onana played at Ajax. Pretty much all of his signings so far. Eriksen played at Ajax. All of his signings so far, apart from Johnny Evans, who was obviously just an emergency signing, and Rasmus Højlund, have all played in the Eredivisie, and they're all players that Erik ten Hag knows or you know, has some sort of connection with, which I don't think is how a football club of our size should be run. And I agree with that. And you know, when the Man United fans say get rid of Erik ten Hag, his signings have been bad, I agree that his signings have been bad, 100%. But I don't think that's a good enough reason to sack a manager. I think the solution is that you keep Erik ten Hag, but you take away the responsibility of signing the players. Now, looking at it from a very balanced perspective, is there a world where Erik ten Hag turns around to Ineos and says, I don't want to be here if I'm not going to be involved in the signing of the players? Because the thing you have to remember is When Erik ten Hag signed for Manchester United 2 years ago, that deal was done with the Glazers, not with Ineos, not with Jim Ratcliffe, okay? And the agreement was that Erik ten Hag would have the final say on transfers. That was part of the conditions of him coming to Manchester United. So you do have to look at this from both perspectives. Obviously, Ineos have come in and are now running the sporting side and have got a manager in place who's got way more authority than what they ever would want to give to a manager. Now, that does make it complicated because the current contract with Erik ten Hag and Manchester United says that he will have involvement in the transfers and all the rest of it. So how do they get around that? You know, if Erik ten Hag is going to stay, he's going to have to surrender authority. And maybe he doesn't want to do that. That I think that's the thing that a lot of people seem to be forgetting about. Everyone seems to forget that Erik ten Hag might not be happy with the current situation. Everyone who's just joined the video, could you do me a small favour and smash a like on today's show? Let's try and see 200 likes on today's video. That would be really, really appreciated. And if this is your first time watching, please make sure you subscribe as well. I'll be live throughout the whole transfer window. We'll have shows in the morning, the evening, and I will be live in the day if anything breaks as well. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you get involved. Always good to have new people in this community. So big ups to everybody. What else have we got in the... Romano says, can we really afford to sack Erik ten Hag? I mean, financially, sacking Erik ten Hag is a minefield. It's going to be about £10 million to sack Erik ten Hag because obviously we've qualified for Europe now, which means his wages won't be reduced. If we hadn't qualified for Europe, his wages would have been reduced by 25%. So sacking Erik ten Hag is about 10 million, which is a hell of a lot of money, especially if then you're going to go and try and sign De Zerbi and you have to give Brighton compensation. That's the problem. But in relation to managers that, you know, could come in, the story this morning is that apparently the top two favourites in the Ineos camp are Poch and Thomas Frank. I mean, I don't know what they're thinking, to be honest. Like, Poch and Thomas Frank are the two top options for Man United. It really doesn't excite me, but we'll have to wait and see what happens with that one. Obviously, at the moment, it's just constant back and forth. There's journalists contradicting themselves every single day, and that's just where we are at the moment, you know. And we just have to hope and pray that we get a solution in the next couple of days, because then we can just start focusing on the summer. We can start focusing on our plans, signings, incomings, outcomings, opposed to just constantly talking about the manager. But yeah, right. It's a little bit of a shorter video today, guys, because I've got to go off and do something important. But I will be back at 6 o'clock. Please do me a small favour on your way out. Smash a like on today's video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. This has been Daily Red Devil. I'll be back at 6 o'clock for a longer show. So thank you to everybody. Speak a bit later.